I
All right, so
apologize.
this article is coming to us first on Inman, but this was released like hours, maybe within minutes of our show ending last week. And I got
Yeah.
so many texts. People were blowing up the DMs. They're saying, "Oh my gosh, you guys didn't cover this." I'm like, "Well, no, we didn't cover it because it literally just happened." So I think Zillow watches the show.
They
And they
waited.
wait until the end of the show, and they're like, "All right, time to release this news." And this is not the first time this has happened. All right, Zillow to acquire Showing for $500 million. The company plans to continue to operate ShowingTime as an open platform for all real estate agents, not just those who partner with Zillow. Okay, so what ShowingTime is, if you're a consumer watching this, you're like, what's the big deal? ShowingTime, we give all of our customers information to ShowingTime and our clients, our sellers mainly. And then ShowingTime, if an agent wants to schedule an appointment, and like I'm doing this podcast, or maybe I'm visiting with someone else, right? And an agent wants to schedule a showing on your listing, they'll contact ShowingTime, the showing service, who then contacts you via text or phone call, and they will set up that showing and schedule it with you so that you know when to be out of the house, you know someone's coming, etc. So not a big deal. Zillow acquires the showing service. What's the big deal? All right. So Zillow announced Wednesday it's entered into an agreement to acquire real estate showing management and market analytics company ShowingTime for $500 million. Company said it would continue to operate. So this is Errol Samuelson. He is Zillow's chief industry development officer. He says, quote, "In many ways, this acquisition is thematically similar to other work we've been doing. This idea that when there are broad industry opportunities or challenges, we can apply technologies to help fix those, not just for our partners or premier agent customers, but for the industry in general." So what Zillow sees is that, hey guys, let's just kind of help the entire industry by taking this technology and making it better for everyone. That's kind of what they're saying is the shtick.
Right.
It's similar here with showing time. One of the things we recognize here is that it's a real challenge having a qualified buyer who wants to see a property actually get into that property. So I'm not sure what that real challenge is, other than maybe some of the news that we heard earlier about wasn't it in New Jersey? Was it New Jersey that the racism stuff was happening and people couldn't get into homes or whatnot, and they were looking for alternate solutions to get people. So that's the most recent news story that I can even think of that they could be referring to as far as qualified buyers not getting in to see homes. Maybe something is afoot where people are filling up the showing times, the showing slots, and they can't get in. I haven't really seen that in the news story or anything later recently. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just a surprisingly high failure rate in the industry just to get a buyer in to see a home. Really?
I
Qualified
don't
buyer?
I
I would
don't
love some
know about
comments,
that one.
especially the Clubhouse folks that are joining us live. I would love to hear your comments. If you're having a problem getting a qualified buyer into a home, is it because of the showing service? Is that the issue?
I
Okay,
mean,
let's
so okay, in a level or standard market, right? When we have way more inventory and it's not necessarily a buyer's or a seller's market.
right.
I mean, you can kind of call same day and, hey, I'd like to see. I used to always have I'd give them an hour notice, like two hours notice to be really good, just to make sure. Because a lot of stuff, I don't know how it is across the country, but for us, it's like seller wants an hour notice, seller wants 2 hours notice, whatever it is. But the market's a little bit crazier, and there's more buyers that are clamoring to get into these homes. So I start my showings 2 days in advance now is when I start planning them, and I
Yeah.
haven't had any issues. And I had another agent help me out this weekend because I was out of town, and I planned everything Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and it
Yeah.
was fine, and it worked really well. Some through showing time, some through the agent, but so I don't know where that would come from, other than those agents that like try to plan last minute, because then showings are booked. But that's just because a lot of buyers want to see houses, though.
Yeah. Let me bring up Thomas. I'm going to bring up somebody in Clubhouse because I want to hear some feedback, and then we'll get into some of these Facebook comments too that I enjoy seeing. So let me bring up Clubhouse here, and then okay, so let's go to Thomas. Thomas, tell us who you are and where you're working from, and if you could, what's your thoughts on this not being able to get people into showing time or showings?
Hey, so yes, my name is Thomas Santucci. I'm a realtor in Maryland for Long and Foster. So, in our area right now, if you're not on top of it in the coming soon scheduling your showing, it is very hard to get into some certain places, because literally there's 25, 30 qualified buyers per house in our area. And, you know, the showings are backed up, you know, a few days, and not everyone is doing deadlines, because the sellers don't feel like they need to. They're getting 50,000 over asking immediately. There's so many, you know, buyers that have been just shot down so many times they don't care anymore, so they're just offering as much as they can. And so there have been times where I just have to, you know, tell the agent, hey, I'm coming today. I'm just gonna, you know, have to wait for the person in front, you know, to you know, leave the house for us to see it, because everything's just totally backed up before they're presenting. And so that's
So how, can you envision a way in which Zillow would be able to solve this issue by the acquisition of ShowingTime? Like, does them having a showing service help in any way?
No.
No. And I'll tell you what has happened already to me from Zillow acquiring ShowingTime. I had a Zillow lead come in, and they can automatically because ShowingTime, I know not all areas ShowingTime is like what everyone uses, but in our area, that's like the number one way we schedule showings. The lead can automatically schedule and see the availability of a listing and schedule it on their own. And then you get connected with that lead who's already scheduled that time. So you kind of already have to be, you know, ready for whatever time that client picked, you know, and then you have your conversation if it doesn't
Wait,
work.
is that through Zillow or ShowingTime?
Nonetheless, the lead, you know, came in on a 55 plus community home. They scheduled their own showing, and they didn't know it was a 55 plus community, right? So they're scheduling that showing on their own, not even knowing the kind of property it is. And, you know, I think that's just the beginning of some problems, because, you know, they're taking up that spot for someone who might want to see that house during that time.
So you're saying that maybe it's not all qualified buyers. I think it's buyers that are scheduling them, but maybe not all qualified buyers. Because if you're not 55 plus scheduling in a 55 plus community, then this should be something that a real estate agent would probably catch. Whereas you have the showing service that wouldn't even catch it. Thanks, Thomas, for the input. That's good info. There's a couple of comments I want to get to in Facebook as well. And if you're just joining us and you're watching in Clubhouse, just raise your hand and we can bring you up to speak. We'd love to have you there. If you have something else to say, you can raise your hand again or kind of flash your mic so I can tell if I see that or if Matt sees that. And we can't hear you on the podcast, or I can't hear you at all until I actually come to you and like say your name, just because of how it works. So Stuart, we'll get to you in just a second. Let me get some of these comments. Adam Johnson says COVID, no overlap showings. That's true. Melissa Mars says, oh wait, we're just talking about spraying the brine still. Okay. Christian Harris says, I heard a good point yesterday. With ShowingTime having such a large market share, they have enough competition to drive forward any innovation or improvements on their platform. Oh, they don't have enough competition to drive forward. Okay, I see what you're saying. So competition will generate the innovation, but because they're acquiring the biggest dog, then they're not going to innovate as much. Adam Johnson said, I was telling my sellers to leave for the weekend. That usually works.
Yeah.
Mike Elizabeth Brodell says, I would have preferred Zillow create their own platform. ShowingTime can compete and drive technology improvements versus outright controlling every facet of our industry. And Jan Barrett says, need open houses. Yep, that's true. Jan, is that your first? I think that's Jan's first comment ever with us, isn't it, Jan?
I
Thanks
believe
for
so.
watching the show. Curtis Lee says, Zillow has been integrated with ShowingTime for 5 months now. That's interesting. And Curtis, has anyone ever told you that your avatar looks a little bit like Gary Keller? Do you see that? Do you see the resemblance, Dan?
Yeah, I've always known that he is Gary Keller.
Oh, okay. That's actually Gary Keller watching our show under the auspice of Curtis Lee.
Exactly. There you go.
Mike Elizabeth Rowell says, well, that's slow for a non-approved lead to be able to schedule their own showing. I can't wait for luxury properties to pull out of that racket. Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah. Curtis Lee said the lead went to the agent and confirmed with ShowingTime. showing, but if the showing is appropriate 55 plus, they can cancel, or inappropriate, he says. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think agents would kind of catch some of that stuff that makes somebody not approved. Let me go to Stuart in Clubhouse. Stuart, tell us who you are, where you serve, and what's your take on this part.
My name is Stuart Danger. I am in Atlanta, Georgia, and I work kind of in the Buckhead, Morningside, Brookhaven area. I've heard a lot of different takes on this past couple of days, and I think one of the most important, you might have mentioned earlier, sorry if I missed it, was just the amount of the data that they're collecting from this, and it's real-time data for them because they can see. Granted, people can now schedule, however, it's different than it was. Schedule themselves as a lead and go and see a property. Zillow will be able to see in real time what volume is going to different properties. So they actually can actually see the demand for properties in areas, and that helps them on the backside with Zillow's agency as well. So I think that's their huge take on this, is just the amount of real-time data they're getting to almost see the movement, as you say, where money walks. And I think with that in hand, there's a lot of ways this can go. Even when we go into foreclosure market, like these huge hedge funds can see where things are dropping the fastest and where the saturation is, and where companies like BlackRock need to come in and absorb as much as they can in that area. I think Zillow is going to have the hand up on that. But yeah, all the comments on Facebook are right too. I can't wait to see people shy away from this and try and make it work without it. But ShowingTime dominates here in Atlanta for the most part. So this will be interesting.
So you're saying, Stuart, that there may be other reasons that Zillow bought this, not just to make a showing service better for the entire industry, but maybe there's some data that they could collect that would be incredibly profitable for them to have. And Stuart's take on that is one that I've kind of heard echoed throughout the industry, that with the data of seeing where properties are being acquired, then they can use that with their iBuyer service. And then they can make moves as people are just being shown homes. They can make moves on properties. And, it could open up inventory, right? I mean, if they're able to find properties and make moves on those. But we as real estate agents can also watch where they're listing, because if it takes them just a day or two to list a property and they're making moves in parts of town where they believe people are seeing it, then we can also follow those trends as real estate agents and follow what they're doing if we wanted to. So we might be a little bit delayed, but it's not a tactic that we also don't have at our fingertips just by watching Zillow's acquisitions of properties. But I think it may be more broader than that. There's also some concern about Zillow now having all of the contact information and data for all of our sellers. That's something that I think we should probably look at the end user agreements and the privacy policies with ShowingTime to figure out, is that something they keep and retain on file, or do they dump that information? Who owns that information? I think that's just being a good steward. I don't think that's worried about Zillow taking over the industry, but I think that is being a good steward of your consumer data that consumers have entrusted us with. Right? They tell us, here, I'm going to give you my phone number, but I don't want a bunch of people to have it. Or I'm going to give you my cell phone or my email address, but I don't want a bunch of people to have it. And then we turn it over to Zillow in a roundabout way. And that's a little bit concerning for a lot of folks.